Guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Trademark Sports Podcast. We are heading into round 2. We're really getting into the swing of things. After this week, we would have seen every single club play in the NRL in 2024, with the Tigers obviously coming off the back of the bye in round 1, rather. So, before we get into it, if you are on YouTube, you enjoy this video, enjoy the podcast, subscribe to the channel. If you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, leave 5-star rating as it really helps us out. But without further ado, let's just get into it. There's been some interesting news coming out about the Rugby League over the last week or so. So the first one, there's been blow-ups galore about this, which I find a little bit interesting. And that is the fact that, so obviously teams have a minimum spend in the salary cap. And I believe it was Buzz Rothfield or maybe not Buzz, Michael Carrier, one of the journos, anyway. I might have even been on NRL 360. I'm talking about that it's unfair that the bad clubs have to pay up more to fill their salary cap and pay overs for players. Interesting take, because I believe that in quotation marks, the bad clubs, so traditionally the last few years, your Dragons, your Tigers, your Bulldogs, those clubs of that ilk, right? They're going to have to pay overs to get someone to come to that club anyway, because there's nothing happening there. But if you have, I don't know, let's say the Broncos offering you $500k a year and the Dragons offering you $500k a year, where are you going? I know exactly where I'm going. I'm a Dragons fan. I know exactly where I'm going. And it's just like, it's one of those things that you have to pay overs to get players into your club when you're struggling. And yeah, it might stuff up your salary cap a little bit in the short term. That's just the way it works in our great game of rugby league. I think it's such a nothing story. Anyway, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think you should have to spend a minimum in your salary cap? I guess you could sort of hoard up your cap space a little bit when there's a year that heaps of gun players come off contract or something, and just make a splash. You get 6 or 7 absolute guns in the door at once. I don't know. Yeah, to me, I think the salary cap, the way it is now, is fine. I understand why you have to have a minimum salary cap spend. Look, most of the teams are cheating the salary cap anyway, but it's just done well and covered up. And we have some re-signing news as of today, I believe, and that is that Isaac Tungo has re-signed with the Penrith Panthers till 2028, which is great news for Isaac Tungo as well as the Panthers. He is a stud. He's unreal, getting better every single time he plays the great game of rugby league. I think the plan for him is to shift him into the back row, I believe. Maybe once Scotty Sorensen leaves the club. Because he came through the juniors and everything playing in the back row, and then maybe the year before he debuted, he shifted to the setters. He's got bucket loads of potential and talent no matter where he plays on the field, because Taylor May's come in, played really good in that left centre spot in round 1. I believe it was left centre, yeah. And there's a bunch of young centres coming through in Penrith as well, so I do feel like a shift to the forwards will happen naturally over the course of time. The other big signing, and it's massive for the club, is that Max King has re-signed for the Bulldogs until 2027, which means they've locked down Sam Hughes and Max King for the foreseeable future. And Max King's been by far and away their best front rower anyway for the last couple of years. I think keeping him at the club was almost imperative for them, leading for any success and building what they have there at the club for the future. You've also got some more news around the rugby league circles. This one sort of annoys me. A bit of the old rugby league player privilege, professional athlete privilege. So Corey Oates had a good preseason. Wasn't picked for the Broncos over in Vegas, and not again this week. Was allegedly picked for the Burleigh Bears last week and didn't rock up or something like that. And he's having a sook that he's in Burleigh for for Q Cup, all because it's an hour drive away from his house. You're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to play rugby league, and you won't make a little travel a couple times a week to go and play. People do that, make that trek to work every single day for nowhere near as much money. People for free, they pay to play locally for away trips that are way bigger than that every single week. So I think that's the kind of thing. It's look, you are a professional rugby league player. You getting paid very good money to be a rugby league player. He knows he's privileged to be in this position. Just suck it up. I think if you're Kevin Walters and you're tossing up between this young kid who's got a bit of go and Corey Oates who's very experienced and stuff, but having a sook, I know who I'm picking. It's not going to be the bloke throwing the toys out of the cot when he should know better. And look, he might be out of favour with Kevin Walters and stuff, but you just got to grit your teeth and get through that kind of thing, I guess. Look, I get it as well from Corey Oates because there is a few clubs around Brisbane in the Q Cup that he could be playing for, but at the same time, playing some footy is better than no footy, I reckon. And moving on, my club's probably best player at the moment is looking to leave the club. So Zach Lomax has sort of been reached out to by the Eels, and I think if you're the Eels fan, you should be very excited by that. I think he really fits the mould for what you need in that team, except Will Penasini is a right centre, and so is Zach Lomax. And they're both really prototypical right edge centres. However, Lomax on the weekend looked phenomenal for the Dragons. 24 runs, buckload of metres, scored a try, 10 tackle busts or something. I actually think it was really, really effective and has played himself into being a winger now wherever he goes. I understand the frustration from Zach Lomax. He feels like he's a game breaker and probably doesn't really feel like he can do that on the wing just yet. But Shane Flanagan's come out and said he's definitely not being released for this season, which is a good thing for Dragons fans. From 2025, we don't know. And as well, Zach Lomax has come out and said that he thinks he's a right centre. He believes he's a centre. And but at this moment in time, the best way that he can help his team to win is by playing on the wing, which I'm glad he understands that. Maybe that's just all media talk. From more reports, Zach Lomax and Shane Flanagan were having a chat, a couple of chats before round 4. After that, I believe maybe he's free to talk. Someone else, I don't know. Round 4 apparently is the deadline, whether he's leaving or not from after next season. Hopefully Flano works his magic and Zach Lomax would stay. I think he'd be a great pickup for the Eels, though. Some Tigers good news. You've got Lockie Galvin making his debut this week, and absolute gun, hey. Look at his highlights just coming through. He's a freak. Big body, big frame for an 18-year-old kid as well. Massive raps on him. Him and Latu Fainu coming through as 18-year-olds at that club is nuts. The fact that he's got that 7 gig over Aiden Caesar, who will be on the bench, maybe Caesar starts and Galvin comes off the bench just wearing the 7. He's probably a little bit more versatile than Caesar, to be honest. And having that old head Caesar out there probably will help Bud Sullivan as well, and just the team in general guide around the park, because you do have 2 inexperienced halves out there if you have Sullivan and Lockie Galvin. But I think they'll be fine either way. Certainly one to watch. I think he's got stacks of potential. Going to be a gun. Again, super highly touted, highly rated. Lockie Galvin's certainly one to watch, and congratulations to him and the Galvin family. This next bit though, the Dally M medal. There's something needs I don't know who just even the votes are. I feel like the person who voted for the Sharks game this weekend wasn't watching. But they just needs an overhaul. Simple as that. How on earth after that game is Nicho Hynes getting the 6 points? I think Talakai probably had his best game for the Sharks since that Morgan Harper game. Deserved the most points for the Sharks, to be honest. Man of the match in a losing side was probably Adam Fanua-Blake. I think he got 4 points. He probably should have got 6. Just my opinion, but far out he was good. Yeah, I just don't think that Nicho Hynes deserves 6 points. It's my opinion. Is what it is. Yeah. It's you look at it and you just think how on earth. I'll quickly get up this leaderboard for now. But there's some rogue names in there after those round 1 performances. You look at it and go, really, even Tom Taborevich, I think got 6 points or 5 points for that game over in Vegas, and he was good, but I don't think it was 6 points good. I don't know if he really was man of the match in that game. So there's 3 players on 6 points after round 1. It's Nicho Hynes, Bryce Cartwright, and Tom Trbojevic. Bryce Cartwright's probably the only player there who deserves 6 points. Teddy, 5, can cop that. Jeremiah Nano, 5, yeah, okay. Jamal Fogarty got 4, he definitely should have got 6. And then Tyrell Sloan getting 4 points in that game, where you'd probably have a Zach Lomax getting more points than him. I think Tyrell had his best game for the Dragons, in his career, honestly, all round wise. But hey, guess you can't win them all, I guess. Tips for this week: Broncos versus Rabbitohs up in Brisbane at Suncorp Stadium. I'm going the Broncos. Sharkies versus the Dogs. Sharks at home. That's just the Sharks. Panthers versus Eels. interesting game because there's a lot of history between these two sides the last few years. Panthers have always sort of struggled against the Eels apart from the grand final. Panthers notoriously start the season slow, and that's why I'm going the Eels to upset them in Penrith this week. Then it's Raiders versus the Tigers. I'm going to tip the Raiders, however. It's one of those games where I can really see the Tigers coming out and beating them because it's round one, essentially for them. Haven't seen them play, don't really know what to expect just yet. And it'll be a very Raiders thing to do to go out and lose to the Tigers. Then it's the Cowboys versus the Knights in Townsville, and I'm not sure what the vibe is because they weren't very good last week, and the Cowboys were great. But something's really telling me that the Knights are going to win this weekend. I don't know what it is, but that's what I'm tipping. And the two games on Sunday, I'm going to tip the away teams. I got Roosters beating Manly at Brookie, and the Dragons beating the Dolphins at KO Stadium, which would probably be tough. You know what? I'm still tipping the Dragons. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins do win that and Hammer comes out and has a ripper after his game last week. Alright, let's get into answering your guys' questions and finishing off another week of the Trademark Sports podcast. So Isaac.1380 asked, if you could bring any past Dragons player to the 2024 roster, who would you bring? It's a very good question. I think you look at the current squad, the glaring holes are probably fullback, 5'8", dummy half. We haven't really, since the merger, there hasn't been a really outstanding all-time forward. Of course, there's been good ones, but I don't think there's anyone that you'd put in the all-time ratings. I guess, yeah. Anyway, I think Darius Boyd would be sensational with this team in fullback. I've also got Jamie Soward. Imagine Soward and Hunt in the halves together. Brilliant. If I had to pick, gun to my head, or even that hooker, you could bring back Cameron McInnes or Reece Robson. I'd absolutely love that. They'd be good in that team. Dean Young, heaps of ticker. Gun to my head, I'm probably going to say Jamie Soward though. Question from Eric_Fraser20, and it sort of ties into the next one a little bit. It says, Broncos still premiership favourites. First of all, didn't know they were. I believe the Panthers were still definitely the premiership favourites. Yeah, Broncos definitely weren't the favourites to win the comp. I still don't think they are, but I don't think their premiership stocks have changed. They lost one game in Vegas. Whoop-de-doo, a lot of rugby league to be played. And I think that sort of ties into my next question because it's from Kine_Newman_, and he says, do you see the Warriors sorry for stuffing up your question. He says, do you still see the Warriors as contenders or just shaking off round one nerves? Again, I thought it was going to be very hard for the Warriors to come back after what they did last season. Still don't know if they were contenders. They're a lot more chance of winning a comp than a lot of other teams. But again, it's round one. They didn't play their best footy. They know that. They'll look at areas to improve. They'll come back. They'll be better. It's just the way it goes. And then last question to round out this week's podcast. It's going to be very short this week. My apologies. Busy times. I hope you can forgive me. We'll get better. This is from AAD_M3, and he has said, thoughts on how the Storm will fit Farlongo, Howarth and Blore into their lineup. I think round one tells us a lot about the fact that they probably won't be able to fit them all in their lineup. Farlongo, I don't know where you put him because back in the day, Storm used to carry Harry Grant and Pappenhausen or Grant and Hines for a couple of those years there on the bench. And you could do that when you had Brandon Smith playing in the 9, because when Harry Grant come on, he just got a lock. With Wishart coming on, he probably actually could do a job at 13, to be honest, but Harry Grant's not going to come on. When Wishart comes on, Harry Grant's not going to play 13, and vice versa. So you do have one less forward in the rotation, if that makes sense. So it's hard to carry two utilities. I don't think Farlongo actually gets in that team unless there's an injury or someone's really out of form. He's an amazing player, but times on his side, he's 19 or 20. Doesn't need to be playing first grade football right now. I think let him hone his craft in New South Wales Cup and he'll be sweet. Jack Howarth's interesting because there's been so many raps on him for so long. He looked really good in the preseason and still can't get his way into that team. Joe Chan's starting and he's a fantastic football player. Alec McDonald, again, another fantastic footballer. But they don't have the raps and the ceiling that Jack Howarth does. So it's interesting that he's not getting a run still. Did see that the Cowboys are interested in offering him a contract if the Storm give him permission to negotiate with other clubs, which means potentially they're looking to to release him because he's on a fair pay packet to not be playing NRL. It's obviously something he's not doing there that the Storm want to see. Again, I don't really see him coming in. And the other guy they brought in, Sean Bloor, I think he'll come in eventually. He sort of didn't have a full preseason at the Storm, so a few more reps under the belt, like getting used to the systems and the play style and that sort of thing. And we'll probably see Sean Bloor maybe round 3 or 4 make his debut off the bench for the Storm. But yeah, sort of see how I see that playing. I don't see how you can fit Farlongo, Howarth, and Bloor into that team right now, given the current state of how fit everyone is. Like, you've even got Nelson to come back into this team, which pushes all those guys one step further back. So that's the way I see it, and that, again, it is what it is. So that's going to be the end of another episode of the Trademark Sports Podcast. Thank you guys for all your support and watching. Hopefully your team wins on the weekend, unless you're a Dolphins fan, because that means the Dragons will lose, and I'm not going to get around that. Once again, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Just remember to, Scotty, drink your water.